Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Ernie.
and this is Budget Nerds.
What was all in your mind?
You are not alone.
No, you are not. Welcome back, Ernie. Today, we're talking about the YNAB method. We're talking about the habits and the principles behind the app and behind the method for managing your money. But we're going to apply it to other areas of life. I think that a lot of the principles that we follow when we manage money really apply to life in general, the fun stuff and the more like productivity fancy stuff. So I think we're going to go back and forth. We're going to talk about some examples in our personal life of how we apply the YNAB method to our regular everyday life. And then we'll talk about some optimizer hacky stuff to improve your own life as well.
This is going to be really fun because I love the YNAB method and it works with money. But then as you start getting into other areas of life, you're like, wait a second. I'm applying the method to this area of life and it's working.
Well, it just kind of infiltrates everything, right? I mean, it works so well for money. It should work for, I don't know, maybe planting new grass in your yard. Why don't you talk about that, Ernie? That's a good one.
I did not even have to force this. So you folks know I'm a lawn nerd. I love taking care of my yard. And this spring, I've been planting a lot of new grass seed. And so I'm out there in my yard quite a bit of time. And I just realized I'm totally applying the method to my grass seed. So let's break it down here. Rule number 1, seed, for it to germinate, it needs soil and water. Like if you don't have soil and water, you don't stand a chance. So Every seed needs soil and water. Make sense?
Every seed. Okay, so instead of every dollar, so give every seed oil and water, or is that
soil?
So oil.
Do not put oil on your new seed.
Just pouring a bunch of grease all over your lawn. That's great. Soil, not oil.
So bare minimum, you have to do that. Now to take it to the next level, you need to what I call embrace your true conditions.
Oh, I love it.
So does the soil need fertilizer? Does it need lime? Do you need to do some sort of erosion control, or do you need to cover the seed with something to protect it from other conditions going on in the particular area? So this is, like I said, this is really leveling up your yard game. Sure, you could get grass to grow by just having the seed in contact with soil and water. But for it to flourish, you need to take into consideration all these other things going on.
So that's when it's like you have a universal principle, but you also have principles for your yard, right? Like
yes,
your situation.
Absolutely, because it's going to be different from yard to yard, region to region. Rule 3, which I'm realizing is a universal principle. You have to be flexible and adapt because there's going to be things that are completely out of your control. You're going to have a downpour and it's going to wash out all of your new seed. Or your kids are going to trample through it, ride their bikes through it. You're going to have squirrels and rodents who are digging in it at all times. And so you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt and kind of, on the fly, make some fixes.
I love that. Okay, so you got the rule 3 in there, roll with the punches, but these are like, just literal disasters that happen to the land instead of your finances, right?
Yes. And surprisingly, they're just as frustrated. Like something collapses financially, I'm just as frustrated when something goes wrong with my new seeding project.
Love it.
And then rule 4 is aging your grass. So once it starts germinating and you actually have established new turf, you want that turf to be there for the long term. So you need to continue to mow it, fertilize it, water. You just need to take care of it so that it lasts for decades and decades.
Man, Ernie, I love that you thought about this so much. I think you should you need to put this out there. I mean, I guess you are right now. That's what you're doing. But I feel like you could like lead a, I don't know. I feel like you could lead a course on this or something.
The 4 rules of grass management, of grass planting, reseeding. Yeah.
There's a lot there.
I don't know. It feels
check out
so,
Ernie's new course.
There we go. It's just
Only
much
$1
more
billion.
much more catchier in the finance world. Because I don't think
Right.
people are thinking when they're planting grass, like, I need a system for reseeding my yard, though. Maybe. Maybe the
disagree,
optimizers.
Ernie. I think they absolutely are, because, well, I'll wait on what because I'm going to talk about my own home and garden stuff. So I'll wait on that, because there's a lot there. Okay, I love that. So you got your four rules for planting new grass. So let's move on to like a less personal topic, but one also very important. Let's talk about time management. So in YNAB, we are managing a scarce resource, which is money. In time management, you're managing also a scarce resource, which is time, right? And it's all about planning tasks and just thinking about the future, right? So how do we apply YNAB's principles to time management? How does that look?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, Ernie. You were so good about the grass thing. Tell me about this.
So I'm thinking this on the fly. I thought you were going to take this one, so let's do this. Time management. Well, scarce resource, you want to give every hour something, a purpose. What's a better word for a purpose? You want to give it a job? Okay, there we go.
No, I think this is a really good example because, okay, I've been getting into time blocking a lot lately. So you don't know, time blocking is where you plan out really every minute of the day. And you usually put it on a calendar and you say, okay, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm going to be working on this. From 10 to 10:30, I'll work on this. You know, you just plan it all out. And I'll give a little plug to something that I'm really enjoying. A lot of folks at YNAB, Dylan, one of our designers, let people in on this little nifty app called Llama Life. So check that out if you're interested. I'm using it for time blocking, and it's super fun. It's super helpful because what I do is I put in all my meetings for the day. I put in all my tasks, and I've even started putting in not just work tasks, but like personal tasks. Like I need to mow my lawn. Speaking of grass, right? I'm going away on a trip soon, so I need to mow it today. I'm leaving tomorrow to the beach with the family. I have to mow it today. So I put that in, and I'm going to do it during the workday, like during lunch break. So that's planned in there. All my other work tasks are planned in there. It's all mixed together. And it's great because you put it in that you give like an estimate for how long each task is going to take. And it says, okay, all these tasks together will take you up to like 3:45 p.m. And so I can look and say, okay, well, I'm working till 5. I have some more time. I can, maybe put in some other tasks I want to work on, and I can get like a sense of how much I'm going to be able to accomplish today. I don't have this like, first of all, I don't have time wasted because I'm planning everything, but I also don't have this situation I get myself in where I have this really long to-do list at the beginning of the day, and I could never get through everything, right? So then I ultimately fail to get through it, and I feel bad about myself. Even though maybe I accomplished lots of things, I feel bad because I didn't reach my goal. But if I plan and do the time blocking, I can be more realistic. So it's the same thing with money, It's
like that to-do list, that infinite list, what seems like infinite, is you're checking your checking account balance. Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do I fit? What does this mean? How do I fit it all in? But then you apply rule 1 and you're like, oh, okay. So here are the tasks that I can accomplish today.
It's so much like rule 1 because you're working with the time that you have, right? Not this infinite squishy amount of time that, you think you have, right? And if just the act of writing it down and planning it out helps you be realistic. And man, it's made such a difference for me because I've done time blocking before, but this tool is really helpful because it's more flexible than like a calendar. It's meant for this, and it's It's just pretty great. Yeah. So try time blocking. There's lots of ways to do it. I mean, you could Google it and you can learn all about it. But yeah, if you want to try Llama Life, check that out. There's a free version. I think so. Give it a try. But yeah, I'm loving it. So yeah, and there's all sorts of methods for time management. Some more that I think we'll talk about in a minute, but
I keep mine really simple.
Time blocking is probably the closest. Yeah. What do you do, Ernie?
I just Google Calendar and okay, I'm working on Budget Nerds for 2 hours and I'll block that off as Budget Nerds. So when I start the day, I can just kind of look, okay, here are the main things that I need to focus on.
Yeah. Okay. So it's exactly the same thing.
Yep.
So you're doing time blocking, but you're maybe a little more like kind of time. Actually, I've heard the term time blobbing. Lately, where it's like instead of a block, it's a blob. So it's like a little more amorphous. Like I'm going to be working on these general things instead of like this task is going to take 5 minutes. Because I'll do that. I'll literally be like, this task is going to take 5 minutes. It's kind of the question of like, how specific do you want your categories to be? It's almost like that, So yeah, I guess, I mean, there's so much we could talk about with time blocking or time management, but I think time blocking, that concept is just right along with YNAB and the principles that we do, especially rule 1.
And what about rule 2?
Everything else. Yeah, well, let's do the exercise. Let's talk about time blocking specifically. How could rule 2 apply?
I mean, if we're thinking about that infinite list, anytime a task appears like in my brain, something I know has to get done, I put it on the list. And then it's all out of my head because I don't want to rely on my brain. I want to get it to a list. And then from there, I can plan it on the calendar. So, all these future things that you want to do, put them on that list. Like what I do, I use Todoist, like my eye appointment. This just came up. Every June 1st, there's this recurring event, schedule an eye appointment. So I don't have to think about that. It just pops into my list of to-do things. And then from there, I get to fit it in to my calendar.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking about all those future tasks that there's no way I'm ever going to remember and translating it to the calendar eventually.
Yeah. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit too. But yeah, maybe you could say like rule 2, you mentioned there's these new tasks like coming in. So maybe instead of like constantly chasing the task that's right in front of you, like think about the future and like, what do I need to do to prepare? Like, for example, I might have a task called, actually I do. I have a task called workday cool down mode. Okay. The last 15 minutes of the day are for kind of looking back on the day I just had and feeling good about what I accomplished or not, or maybe being like, how can I improve? And then also planning the next day. So it's a little more like putting in time, planning tasks instead of just being a constant rat race, putting in time to work on the system,
Sure.
What I mean? So kind of getting ahead of future tasks. That's kind of a rule 2 tie-in. Rule 3 is clear. I mean, this is one reason why I love using this new app, Llama Life, I'm using instead of a calendar. You can move things around like instantly.
Yes.
And change it around. So, because I mean, good grief, I got 4 kids. They're all here right now because it's summer. I gotta be flexible because stuff comes up.
I mean, time management especially needs flexibility. So this is, and like I said, I mean, rule 3, being flexible, rolling with the punches. I think that's just universal in every area of life. It needs to be there.
And then time blocking, you're guessing how long tasks are going to take you, and you're often going to be wrong. One way or the other. I mean, I had a task that I put in for 15 minutes today. It took me like 2 minutes, or I might go the other way. I might take a lot longer. So it just depends. I just got off a meeting that was supposed to be 45 minutes, but we talked for an hour and 15 because we were just on a roll, and and Ernie could tell you, I came into this Budget Nerds recording and I'm like, I was not really ready because I was just coming from another meeting and I didn't, I have to do stuff. Like I have to turn the fan off in the room. I have to
your earphones were all wonky.
Gosh, you
were using different
headphones
in the other meeting.
You said it's like a Rubik's Cube, these headphones, because they're like, I'll show you guys. Like they just they twist this way, But also this way, it's like a four-dimensional object. All right. Anyways,
And when they catch you off guard, they're impossible to get back to the position they should be.
yeah. So Ernie can tell you, I came in and I was like, he was talking to me and I couldn't hear him because I was like, I'm getting these headphones on. Anyways.
Okay.
All right.
Here, this is going to be tough. Time management translating into rule 4. Aging your time management or some sort of buffer with time management.
This is why this is tough, because with money, so money and time are both scarce resources. Money you can store up, but time you can't. You can't store up time. It just goes away.
Good point.
And so,
I mean, are we focusing on the buffer here, or like, just a little bit of wiggle room, breathing room?
Yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe it's like working. Yeah, maybe it's like, okay. Here's what we could focus on. The aspect of Rule 4 that I think we're talking more and more about is having space to make decisions, having a little margin in your life, so you don't have to be so reactionary. So maybe it's building in time. This sounds like my Rule 2 application, but it's building in time to kind of work on the system and make sure, you're thinking about the future and you're kind of giving yourself a break. Or maybe it's more of a self-care thing. It's like, building some time to take care of yourself so you're not like in this reactionary mode all the time. That could work.
Sure, I can see that. I'm going on vacation next week. You're going on vacation.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it somehow. Is that what you're thinking, like the self-care?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, guys, put in the comments. Time management, specifically time blocking. How can we get a Rule 4? Let's talk about it in the community.
And we're probably stretching things by taking the areas we're talking about and applying it to every single rule.
It doesn't. Yeah. It might not all perfectly apply, but these principles that we're doing in YNAB, I think they really are universal in a lot of ways. So,
and like you said, it's fun. I mean, we're budget nerds, so we're always thinking about this stuff. Let's kind of bring it
the activity itself
to our other hobbies. Speaking of which, pool care.
Let's talk about pool care. So I got a pool and I take care of it myself. And this is what I wanted to talk about with you saying like, I don't know if that people are looking for like a method for grass seed. I am. I'll tell you what, because Ernie, I'm looking at my grass right now. You would be ashamed. It's a whole ecosystem out there. There's like thousands of species. There's clover. There's this long, thick grass, and then it's like a front on my lawn. Like there's like this like shallow. Is that the word? Like it's not as deep. It's like doesn't grow as tall grass, and then there's like this deep, thick grass, and it's like a front, and it's like pushing it back over. It's over like several years. And I don't know which kind of grass I like more. You probably know the species of it and everything. I should send you a picture. Anyway, it's a mess. So if I was going to be like, I want to get this lawn nice, I would look to you, or I would look to like an online course to be like, what's the method? Like, because I'm one of those people, and I bet a lot of YNABers are too, where it's just like, I just want a plan, a method that's been proven, and I'm just going to stick to that. And I'm going to be like, belligerent about it. Like I'm gonna be like, this is the way, because that's what YNAB was for me. It's like, this is a plan and it works, and I'm just gonna do it. And if it works for me, then I'm gonna stick with it. If it doesn't, then I'll try something else. So that's what I was with pool care. So I bought this house in 2015. It had a pool. It took like a year for this house to sell. And I think that might be one reason why, because it had a pool, because a lot of people don't want to take care of a pool. And especially this pool, because it has like all these trees over it. It's really nice, but like it's a little more finicky than a lot of pools because it has like all these trees dropping stuff in it. And it's a little tricky. So I found this forum online that just had a proper like method. And they were very passionate about their method. I'm not like as bought in as some of the people in this forum, but like they talk like it's like it's a religion or something, man. Like they're like so intense about it. And I bought in. I said, okay, I'm going to follow this method, these particular chemicals you need. It's all about it appealed to me too, because it's a lot of cost saving. They're like, oh, you don't need all these really specific chemicals you can get at pool stores. Like all you need is bleach, baking soda, borax. That's it actually used to be called the BBB method because that's what it is. The bleach, but borax, baking soda is all you need. All stuff you can buy at the grocery store, right? And yeah, you do that. But that's one thing. It's like, okay, it's a method that I ascribe to. But one thing about this method for pool care is it requires consistency. And I think YNAB is a lot like this. I have to do a little bit of work every single day to maintain this pool. I need to keep the levels right. I need to test it. I need to just be aware of what's going on with my waters here. And if I don't, the amount of work can pile up and get to be really difficult. So you guys can tell I'm going toward reconciliation here. It's just like that. Like, I remember back in the day, I've told this story before, I had a huge mess with reconciling my accounts in YNAB all the time because I would only do it like once a month or so. And it was just a nightmare. And I didn't import anything because I didn't know that you could import a file. I just didn't get that. This is in the YNAB 4 days, so we didn't have direct import. But I would get a file from my bank and I'd go line by line. I'd look for all the mistakes and I couldn't remember how to categorize things. And I remember thinking like, okay, if I could just do this every day, this would get a lot easier. So I set a reminder on my phone every day. As I said YNAB, and I popped in and I did it. And that's when I became a budget nerd, Ernie. Like, it became a dream because it was just fun. Like, I just took care of the 5 transactions from the day before, closed it out and done, and that's a lot like my pool management, because if you don't do a little bit of chemical balancing every day, if you don't just brush it, and just check if it needs to be brushed and brush it if it needs to, that kind of thing. If you let it go for 3, 4, 5 days, 6 days, you'll start to grow algae and it starts to stink, just like your checking account in YNAB. So yeah, that's the principle I brought over, is a little bit of work every day saves you from a lot of work all at once.
So true. For any area of life, you need consistency if you want to see growth. I mean, the same would be with the grass, the seed planting. You have to get out there every single day and water that new seed, especially through the first 2 weeks. And then afterwards, once it germinates, it starts growing and becoming mature, you can't just ignore it, right? You have to keep paying attention. Yeah. It is. It's all about consistency, showing up just a little bit every single day.
I love that. Yeah. All right. Moving on. I wrote down second brain. What is that, Ernie? Do you know anything about this? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I know nothing about this second brain. It's something I've been hearing about.
Okay.
Here at YNAB. So let me take a stab at it.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I mean, it's getting stuff out of your head.
You got it.
Right, and just dumping it somewhere, and that thing is your second brain that you rely on.
Yeah. So the term second brain comes from a book by Tiago Forte. You should check that out. It's called Building a Second Brain. And this is really interesting because this is something that is in a lot of like time management principles, getting things done. That's the old school book on time management. I read that a long time ago. That's what led me to use Todoist for my task management, that kind of stuff. And that's all about what it says really right at the beginning of. Okay, I'm talking about getting things done here. We'll get to building a second brain later. 2 books we're talking about here. Okay, so getting things done talks about having a mind like water. Okay, you don't want to ever have anything in your head. If it's something that you can't act on immediately, you need to write it down, and there's all these principles. Like, you need to write it down in a place where you're going to look at regularly. And you're going to always go back to, and that way your brain can just release it and you don't have to think about it. Building a second brain is, I think, really iterating on that. It's not just about tasks though. It's about anything you're learning. It's about taking notes. Let's be honest. It's not that complicated. It's really just about having a system for taking notes. And it's almost like getting things done, but more in the digital age, because it's about taking notes, the apps that you can use to do that, organizational methods that are more based on like getting things done. The old school book was about like having a filing system, and this was like paper filing because this is an old book, right? It was like, having this complex filing system that you could always look at. Building a second brain is like have an app, use tags to tag all your notes, and you can just search it. You don't have to have files, or you don't have to have folders and stuff. That's a thing of the past because search engines are really good now, So, but the whole point is to get things out of your head so you don't have to think about it. So you can see how this applies to YNAB very clearly, right? That's what YNAB does.
It gets everything out of the brain, into the budget, out of the bank statements, out of the spreadsheets, into the budget, something that you're going to be coming back to on a regular basis. I like it.
And it's interesting because I see people in the community talking about using YNAB for things beyond money management, because it's that place that they're always going back to. They're like, oh, I set reminders for like my friends' birthdays in YNAB. Like they'll set scheduled transactions for like reminders for the, like completely unrelated stuff that YNAB's not built for at all, but it's like, oh, I need to be reminded to mow the lawn. I put a scheduled transaction in YNAB, right?
Recurring.
Why are
every
they doing
week.
that? Because it might be one of the only places that they know they're going to go to consistently. And this note-taking system, getting things done, building a second brain, it doesn't work unless you have a place that you're going to look at consistently. That way you can truly let it go and forget about it once you've written it down, knowing that you're going to be reminded later when the time is right. So, check out those books. Getting Things Done is a classic. Building a Second Brain is kind of a newer iteration on that I really like. And you'll see how it applies to YNAB, because in YNAB you're planning out your money, and once you make that plan, you don't have to think about it, because if you're a good YNABer, if you're following the habits, right, you're going to check your budget before you spend. So you don't have to have anything in your head. You don't have to look at the checking account and be like, and do all this mental math and try to figure out if you can afford something. You'll just know it because it's right there because you made the plan.
My second brain is Evernote. And it's so helpful, especially in the digital age when there's so much information. You read all these articles, or I'm reading articles about, woodworking or lawn care. I'm like, oh, this is really good information, but I'm not going to keep it in my head, but I'll just put it in Evernote, tag it to lawn, tag it to woodworking. And then when I get to that point where I'm like, okay, I want to do some research, I'll just go into Evernote, bring up that tag, and then I've got all this information at my fingertips.
Yeah. I'm using Apple Notes right now, real simple, but I think it's not quite as robust as I'd like it to be. So I think I might try Evernote or something like that. In fact, the Building a Second Brain, somewhere on their site or somewhere, or no, it was a series of videos they did, because it's not just a book, it's like a whole blog and video series and all sorts of stuff. They talked about like there's 4 apps that people use, and they said for my style, I should use Evernote. So
interesting.
I should probably check that out. But my wife and I started using we in Notion. My wife uses Notion for her second brain stuff, and she created a Barlow second brain like workspace in Notion, and it's been great. Like I've been taking notes like just on stuff like, oh, the car is broken, and what did the mechanic say about some random thing? I just write it down. I can always look it up later. Or like, oh, the kids have some kind of weird rash, you take them to the doctor and they're like, it could be these 5 things, and, we like write these things down. And it's just nice to be able to communicate with her and also keep these things out of her head. And that's what YNAB does too. It communicates with the partner as well. So,
well, I'm wondering, excuse me, are there partners that are using YNAB to communicate with each other for different things?
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Because we've talked about individual, like, setting a scheduled transaction for me to mow the lawn, but are they actually, together putting stuff in YNAB as their second brain? I would love to hear if any partners are using YNAB that way. That'd be interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised if you are, because it's that place that you're going to go back to, and so you might naturally start putting reminders in there. because we all need this. Our lives are too complicated, and we have these. Real, I mean, I got my phone here, right? This is part of me. Like this is a second brain, right? It has so much information in it about my life that it really is a part of me. And the only difference is that there's a slow like connection between my brain to the phone, right? Like the speed at which information can pass from one to the other is slow, but it's going to get faster and we're all going to become cyborgs. But
all right.
So that's all I want to say about that. I'm excited about this one, Ernie.
Really?
This might be a stretch, you said, but I'm excited about it.
We're going to talk about something now that we do not talk, not only on this show about, but like YNAB in general. Sports. I mean, we've talked
We're a
more.
bunch of nerds at YNAB. Nobody talks about sports. Yeah, it's like you and our coworker Ryan, and that's basically it. That's the joke.
Yeah, Tristan.
Yeah, Tristan.
Josh.
Yeah, we have a lot of sports people at YNAB.
Casey.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a number of us.
It's just not in the culture that much, but it should be because I like sports too. I'm not like a super duper, it's like I appreciate sports. I can talk about it. I like hearing people that are enthusiastic about any topic talk about that topic. So,
well, I'm enthusiastic about sports. I mean, when I'm not thinking about lawn care, I'm thinking about sports. I started thinking about.
I think I detect a Viking shirt on right now.
Actually,
is that right?
there is. Yeah.
I see
that was not planned. That's funny. So I started thinking about roster management and how that applies to the method. So most sports teams have a salary cap. There's a limit to how much they can spend on player salaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the good teams, like the good franchises that in the long haul, like they're stable. There's this balance of playing for today, but also looking ahead to the future a little bit. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Right. So you're developing young players all the time, but you have this core group that you feel like if the conditions are right, you can win right now. But there are some teams, and this I think across all sports, where they go all in for a year or two. So they trade away their draft picks to acquire some veterans, usually veterans with really large salaries. Mm-hmm. They're right up against the salary cap. So basically they're sacrificing future teams for that one season or those 2 seasons, right? We're going to win it all this year. And sometimes it happens. I'm thinking, do you remember when the Rams won the Super Bowl a couple years ago? They went all in. Upset.
Yeah. Okay.
But now they're horrible. And
that's interesting.
They don't.
Is that what happened to the Cowboys in the 90s? Because I was a little boy in the 90s living in Dallas, Texas, and it was such a wonderful time to be a little boy in the 90s.
Okay.
And,
do you know why it was a wonderful time?
We've lost it. What? Tell me about this. Yeah. Why?
The Vikings. The Vikings made it wonderful for the Cowboys because they went all in on Herschel Walker. They thought he's the missing piece, and so they sacrificed the future. They traded, I don't even want to go through the specifics, but so many draft picks to the Cowboys, and that's how they got Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and all those other superstars. The Vikings built the Cowboys dynasty, and that's a simplistic view, but
a really fun childhood in Dallas, Texas growing up because we were winning every Super Bowl. It was super fun, and I didn't know what was going on, but everybody was excited around me. It was fun.
And then rule 3, like we said, that's just universal. With roster management, you have to be able to roll with the punches. So there's injuries.
Oh, sure.
There's suspensions, just things that can happen that are completely out of the owner's or coach's controls, and they have to adapt. So, and then rule 4, boy, I'm sure we could get there. I just don't know how. Right? I'm thinking
the problem when we're trying to apply it somewhere else.
Breathing room.
Yeah.
I guess you could even. Okay, so here's the thing, and this is especially true in the NFL, and it's done a lot with superstars, where they front load these contracts. So they pay the majority of the money in the first 2 or 3 years of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all this money at the end of it that they call dead money.
Right.
And so what could happen is these players could move on from a team, but their old team is still paying them that contract from that contract, right? So the guy isn't even playing for you anymore, but you're still paying his old contract. And so it's almost like there's no flexibility there.
That's like debt, like
yes,
or like even worse, it's like debt that you're paying on like a car that was like totaled a while ago because you overpaid or something,
Yeah, they're diminishing the amount of breathing room that they have in those future years, and I mean, it's got to be different when you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars. They probably don't feel the pinch. They probably don't care. I mean, teams across every league are kicking the can on some of these bigger contracts. They're just pushing it off to a later date. But yeah, for me, in a simplistic view of sports, that's how I'm breaking down Rule 4.
I heard a story about roster management from a lot. I think I heard about it on This American Life, a podcast, which is like the nerdiest way to hear about sports I can possibly think of. It was some podcast talking about it. Maybe it was Radiolab. I don't know. One of those nerdy podcasts. So you tell me, okay, we'll just take this part out of the podcast if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But I think it was in basketball. The phrase was trust the system. Does that ring a bell for you at all?
Absolutely.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about? There was like somebody who purposely had a bad team in order to get favorable draft picks.
Yeah, so you're trying to build this culture, or you have this strategic way that you are going to build a roster. Certain types of players that you're going to focus on in the draft, or a certain type of system that you want to run, offense or defense, or combined, I guess, here in basketball. And so everything is being built around this system. And at first, a lot of times, it's really rocky road. I mean, things, you're just really bad. You don't have that core set of players. And so, the media is always saying stuff like just trust the system, or, people
like Ted Lasso, basically,
in the organization. I haven't seen that, unfortunately.
There's a lot of that in Ted Lasso, actually. That's interesting that you're saying that.
But that is totally a YNAB concept, trusting the system. When you start off, you're like, I feel poor, or I'm not seeing any big gains, or it's not quite clicking yet. But over time, week after week, month after month of applying the principles, you start seeing those gains, and you're like, oh, I trusted the system, and now I'm seeing the results.
Mm-hmm. I think there is a specific story I'm thinking of. Maybe somebody listening can tell us in the comments. Of a coach, I think it was like in the 80s. I have no idea what I'm talking about, so just bear with me. But that's a bunch of nerds. But I think it was in basketball, and like he came in and he kept saying trust the system, because he was getting a lot of backlash because he purposefully had lower skill players on the team, and like they were doing badly. But because of that, because they were performing poorly, they got favorable draft picks. Like the lowest, like I think in the system that they were going on, like the lowest performing team got like first pick in the draft late, like in the next year, right?
Yep.
So if you guys know what I'm talking about, there's somebody who did this whole process and ended up with a great team. So anyways, but I really love that application. Trust the system. Give it time, to bear fruit. Sometimes you have to trust that this is going to work. It just might take a little time. So,
and it's back to that consistency piece too. Doing a little bit every single day doesn't feel like much. You don't see a whole lot of gains in the beginning, but especially once it gets compounding years down the road, then you're seeing the gains.
All right, Ernie. Well, I think there's so many more applications that we can come up with if we wanted to talk for another hour. But if anybody wants to leave a comment, what's another thing in your life, another system, or maybe a hobby that you apply YNAB principles to? We'd love to hear about it. So let us know in the comments. And if we get enough, maybe we'll do a whole other episode about it. So send along. But why don't we do some YNAB wins right now?
Let's do it.
What was all in your mind?
All right, I'll start with an email from Rachel, who wrote in probably quite a while ago. I think we've got a pretty big backlog of wins here. So I don't remember reading this, but I'm going to read it cold right now. So Rachel says, not my win, but my sister's. Oh, that's nice. Okay. She called me up a few times over the last couple of years to ask me about YNAB. She's had a lot of shame and guilt surrounding money since she was in high school and has struggled with finances because of that. A few months ago, she dove into her family's finances and started trying out YNAB. She sent a video to me and my other YNABing siblings. Oh, I love this. We got a whole family going today to tell us with tears in her eyes that she has Christmas for her kids fully funded. Oh, that's so sweet.
Awesome.
She said, I've never thought about funding Christmas before Christmas. She went on to say that she hasn't got her hair done in 6 months, which before YNAB would have happened much sooner. But she said when she started YNAB a few months ago and wanted to get her hair done, she looked at the budget and said, I can't get my hair done. We don't have money for that. Along with fully funding Christmas today, she funded her hair category and made an appointment for later this week. It might seem small to some, but I know it's huge for her. Oh, I love that. Thank you, Rachel's sister. I'm not sure you said her name there, but I mean, thanks for sharing that, Rachel. That's so exciting. And I love that. You know, she trusted the system. She made a sacrifice. And for some people, that's a really big sacrifice, right? And she said, I'm going to fund Christmas. And when she did, she got what she wanted as well. So that's such a great story.
And I know how big those small decisions feel. So totally with Rachel's sister there. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
My win came from the Budgeting Together episode months ago from Be Beautiful. So Y-O-U-tiful.
I love it. Beautiful.
Beautiful transformations.
Great name. Great name.
I decided to go with YNAB, and my whole life is literally transformed. I actually tried to use this before, but couldn't figure it out, or maybe my brain just wasn't ready, or maybe it was half-assed attempt, probably all the above. However, I decided to give it a real look, and I went through all the literature and have been playing around with it and trying different things. I now have a budget for my personal funds and my business funds. This organizes my money so I can see what's happening, and it's a game changer. Actually, it's like playing a game, like Tetris, stacking the money in perfect piles and categories. It really tickles my fancy. I love that.
Totally. I know what you mean.
I have all my money organized so that this month of December's bills are already taken care of, and now I'm working into the next month. My strategy right now is to get at least a month ahead. That seems like the best place to start for me. Security in my finances is very foreign to me, but now I'm feeling capable, relieved, and excited, a little suspicious, and scared to death at the same time. Anywho, cheers to a new lease on money.
Wow, what a story. I love that.
A lot going on there, and I love
so much.
all of it. So congratulations, beautiful transformation.
Thanks so much. Well, if you have a YNAB win and you're watching on YouTube, let us know in the comments below. We do read every single one of those comments and we respond to a lot of them. So we're happy to get back to you. And if you're listening to the podcast, or if you have something a little more private, just send it over an email and we'll be sure to respond to you there as well. But thank you guys so much for listening.
And did you say the email address? budgetnerds@ynab.com.
I didn't say it. budgetnerds@ynab.com. Thanks so much.
All right. See you in a couple weeks.
See you in a couple weeks.